So one of the first things you're going to want to do is pop this panel off here, and it pretty much pries right off, and it has these just sort of snap clips. And the tool that you're going to want to have to keep from tearing everything up, you can get this at just about any auto parts store, and it's maybe 10 or 15 bucks. It's worth every penny. Do not remove these panels without this pop tool. And I bought these also on Amazon. They were 10 or 15 bucks. They come in a set, and you've got little things like this which help you get in and create some space without marking up the surface. So pop this off, and then we need to take out the glove box. And to get the glove box out, there is a little thing on the side of the glove box. You can see that right there. And you just take a screwdriver and you pop this off the side of the glove box, and it goes up, and you can kind of see that it just kind of sits up there. It just kind of hangs out. It's just a tensioner. So you drop the glove box down and you take the tensioner out, and then you might be able to see there is a little tab here. You push this tab up with your finger while you're pulling the glove box open, and it will open up and fall down. You're not ready to do that yet, so leave it back behind this tab. And then the next thing you're going to do, because I have it all apart, I want to show you, you have these white pins, and these pins, these white pins, are right up in here. You can kind of see they have a just sort of a ridge on them that'll allow you to kind of get a hold of them. Try to focus on that, man. These are behind here, and they go through this hole, as you can see. They just pop through. And so you get your screwdriver up and you pop it this way, and this one you will pop this way, and next drop the glove box down, and it'll come right off these notches and pretty much fall out in your hand. Once you have the glove box out, you want to pull out this piece, and it pretty much pops up. It's got a couple of pins, and they just pop out, and you can see it has a couple of little pieces right here, little metal spots that it falls into right there. And then once you have that out and set it to the side, then you're going to have let me find it here. Then you'll have another one of these, push rivets, plastic push rivets to pull out, and that's where you want to use this tool. You may have to get something like a screwdriver or something behind it to give you enough pressure or enough leverage to get you to pull that apart. So you've got that apart, and then once you have that apart, next you need to drop the airbag down, and that's harder to do than it looks. If your vehicle's like mine, which is a 2016 Explorer Sport, it has knee airbag, and the knee airbag sits right up under here like this. When I pulled it down, I lost one of these white tabs that goes right here. I need to find it. It's laying around somewhere. But there is two 8mm bolts per side. 1, 2, 3, 4. But when you take those out, one thing that's kind of hard to see on the camera, there's another hole in the middle there, as you can see on each end, right in the middle. And that has, I'm going to show you the leftovers here, that has a couple more of the plastic rivets. And I don't know if you can see, it's pretty much destroyed. I had to destroy both of them to get them out. They were way too tight. I went in with this tool and loosened it up, but it wouldn't pull it. And then I went in with this tool, and it would just pull straight through the tines. So I pulled it down enough so that I could get a hold of it and snip it off. And then on one of them, I was able to snip it off with this and pull it on through. On the other one, I was able to snip it off flush and then pull the airbag on down. And once you have the airbag down, you have to contend with the wire. Let me get that out now. Okay, now that we have the airbag down, you can see where the wire plugs in here, and let it focus here. And this is the wire as you see. This is the connector as you see, and it's just sort of just pushes in, has a couple of holes. And the way to get this out is to get a really small screwdriver and be very careful and pull up on both sides. And once you give enough pressure, this will come out to a point, and it won't come any further. You don't want to pop this out, but it'll come out to a point where it's up about, I don't know, about a 1/4 inch. And once that happens, you can kind of give it like a light rocking motion on this connector, and it'll come right out, and you can free the airbag. And that's all there is to that. I also want to add that the airbag is also secured not only on both ends by these plastic rivets, but it's also secured by these plastic pop pins as well. And again, I'm missing one. When I pulled it down, it went somewhere. I'm gonna find it. But so you've got multiple ways to keep it from falling down on you. And to pull this down, you'll just have to put a little pressure under it, and it should pop right out. Shouldn't have much trouble at all. If you notice, you can see part of the airbag actually right here around the edge. So you really don't want to pry around this airbag. You want to find another pry point, get up behind the metal, or up behind in some of this metal here to pry on if you're going to try to pry it down and pop these pins out when it comes out. So it's just something to be very aware of as well. The next thing you're going to have to bring down is this panel, which is up under the passenger compartment here, and it has a 7mm bolt here and a 7mm bolt here. And then it has one that's kind of tough to get to, and I don't know if we can show it at all, but it is up in a crevasse, up in a hole, and you can see it from the top. You can see how tall that is. And so I used this rascal right here, an extension, and was able to get the 7mm up in there with a 1/4 inch socket and pull it right out with no problem. And once you have that out, this will come out in your hand as well. For the next trick, this is the power inverter for those of you that have the standard NEMA wall plug outlets in your vehicle. And it is actually, if you look at the dash right behind this plate, it sits up here, and you can actually see the studs where it sits. You've got a stud here, over here on the right, and let's see here. Let's see, there we go, stud right there on the left, right on the right, and a stud over here on the left. And then pull the carpet down, you have the stud here. And so this is it's not as hard to get out as it looks. You can take a standard socket or a power drill and pull that 10mm nut off. You have 3 10mm nuts, and you have one here and then one there. And I just on the ones in the back, I just use a good old box end wrench and went slow, and they loosen up pretty quick from tight, and then you're able to use your fingers or use a long socket, get up in there if you've got good finger dexterity, and loosen those up and unplug it, and it comes right out. You also see a wad of wires hanging here. These plugs right here actually plug up into something that's right behind here, and I can't really tell what it is, but I was just trying to get these wires out of the way, so I just kind of moved this whole harness, which has the airbag cable and a couple other cables, just kind of up out of the way, just to kind of free up some space. And then this is for the inverter that we just took down, and so I just kind of pulled that up out of the way. And then you're going to pull your carpet down, obviously. And now the secret is revealed. The grommet that you're trying to get to is right up in there, and I'm going to try to get up in there. You're going to get a better look than I had, because I was just sort of feeling that. Let me try to focus on it. There we go. And there's the grommet. This hose right here is windshield washer fluid, and this is a 4-gauge cable through that grommet. And what I did is I used a small screwdriver like this one, just a small, thin, long blade, and was able to push that through. And I pushed it through in a couple of spots, turning it so that it could cut out sort of a small little hole. And then I used some 10-gauge wire taped to my 4-gauge wire, taped to the end of the 4-gauge wire, nice and secure, so it doesn't build up and make it too fat on the end. And I pushed the 10-gauge through, and I used silicone spray to spray the 10-gauge wire, and then spray the length of the 4-gauge wire. And that is how I was able to get the 4-gauge to go through. I would not go through that grommet with something like 4-gauge without lubricating it. All you need is a really thin spray. I mean, WD-40 would work. It's a little heavier than silicone. The silicone spray is just so thin, and it kind of evaporates. I mean, it doesn't stick around. But I laid plastic in this area and sprayed that wire, and then used my hand in a glove, and I just lubricated the wire all the way up and into the 10 gauge, onto the 4 gauge, and then I was able to pull it through the front. So you can see my 4 gauge cable, and right behind it you can see the windshield wiper fluid cable that runs alongside of the grommet that we came through just a minute ago. And just to the right of it you can see just something that looks kind of square and black. That's actually very rubbery, and it is a channel to channel water that comes down the windshield, down out of the way. So I think it's important that you not run the cable under the channel or around the channel. Run it above the channel, and that way there's no risk that water might come back down the cable and try to enter the grommet, although I don't think that you would have an issue there. And so a little bit of perspective, this is the full engine compartment of the Ford Explorer. Yeah, I know it's kind of dirty, and you can't really, you can feel it and you can see it back here, but you can't really see the grommet in the back, so you have to feel it from the inside like I showed you just a few minutes ago. I'm gonna focus on that there. All right, and that's how it goes, and that's how you get to that grommet, and good luck. I hope that really helps, and I'm sorry about my long-winded banter, and if you have questions, just shoot me a question and I'll see if I can help. Take care.